Aethelflaed is even more powerful now with the museum buff. You can now upgrade Aethelflaed, and now you can get 25% troop attack and 15% march speed. This is absolutely insane, and it's going to change the gameplay of everyone in here who is invested into Aethelflaed, and it's really, really good for free-to-plays to use Aethelflaed with this upgraded relic. As you guys know, Aethelflaed is one of those commanders in Rise of Kingdoms that you can obtain for free, where you can purchase her through the medal store. Many of the free-to-plays in Rise of Kingdoms use Aethelflaed. And since then, since there's more commanders that have been released in Rise of Kingdoms, Aethelflaed kind of been pushed back a little bit in the game. But Aethelflaed is one of the best commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, especially being a free one in here. Now, before, when they added the museum buff version 1, it made Aethelflaed very useful again, but then there's more commanders that was released, then of course Aethelflaed kind of got pushed back again. But now with the new addition in here, being able to upgrade your museum buff commanders in here, it is making Aethelflaed better again. Making Aethelflaed great again in here. 25% troop attack comes a long way. And this is great because Aethelflaed is a commander in here that can lead different types of units. Now, what's nice about the buff from the museum buff from Aethelflaed, it is going to give 25% troop attack. That means you can pair Aethelflaed with any type of units and you are going to get that buff perfectly. So you can do a lot of different types of combinations with that, and we're going to talk about that as well in this video. But let's first take a quick look on Aethelflaed. Remember, Aethelflaed does AoE, deals damage to 5 targets in a forward-facing fan-shaped area. So it deals 800 damage factor, and what's great about this as well is not just it's an AoE damage, but it's also an AoE debuffer. So anybody who gets targeted in that forward-facing fan-shaped area will get defense, attack, and health reduction of 30%. Now, the second skill of Aethelflaed is great because what this does, the main thing here is the reduction speed. Cavalry speed reduction. 50%, which is huge. Other march speed reduction will be 30%, and you also get counter damage taken reduction as well. Third skill is okay. This is more for barbarians, and for the fourth skill in here, this is for whenever you launch a rally due to the leadership talent tree. Rally army capacity, you get increased for 10%, attack bonus 20%. This is something that you're not really going to be using a whole lot, but whenever you lead this commander that consists of 3 or more different types of units, you are going to get 20% increased attack. What's nice about this is that it has a new skill. Deals 20% increased damage to troops when they're affected by the slowdown, this is the slowdown, which is going to slow the enemies that you target. Then you get more damage through that process. So what type of combinations can you really do with Aethelflaed? Let's first talk about some of the new heroes in here, making Aethelflaed stronger with these type of combinations in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, a very interesting commander to use for Aethelflaed secondary to pair up is Zargon the Great. So if you guys read up onto Zargon the Great's skill in here, you can see that this skill, particularly when dealing skill damage, this commander's troop has a 50% chance to inflict stack of the odd. So using an AoE commander like Aethelflaed that has skill damage based AoE active skill, you can then inflict and stack odd to the opponents that you find in the battlefield by relying on Aethelflaed's skill. It says here, when dealing skill damage, that's the key word. So you can potentially do, if you're free to play, you can do a 5-5-1-1 or 5-5-5-1. That's a good approach to do with Zargon. Now, there's also other commanders that you can use, some of the older generations as well. You can also use one of those old commanders in here, for example, like Saladin in here. So Saladin is a really good, commander in the game, and a lot of free-to-plays also have Saladin. Since a lot of people would do 5-5-5-1 Saladin in here, and within the support tree of Saladin, you can work towards to the Cage of Thorns. So in this skill, you are going to be reducing the march speed of the nearby enemy troops by 5% after using an active skill. So that is going to be really good because Aethelflaed has an AoE active skill. So when that active skill hits, you're reducing the speed of those nearby enemy troops. And then the Aethelflaed skill is then being more enhanced. Remember, we're also getting 20% more increased damage to the enemy troops when they are affected by the slowdown. Now, another thing to add in here, if you're using Saladin here as main commander, right? You're also getting a skill damage taken reduction and as well as counter damage taken reduction. So if we look into Aethelflaed again, let's visit her in here. It says your counter damage taken reduction of 20% as well. So that should also stack up in the battle report. So with that combination, you're actually making Aethelflaed very tanky in the battlefield, and you're using, cavalry with that, so you'll be able to charge into the enemies fast, and you're getting that museum buff benefit, hitting with that 25% when you upgrade Aethelflaed's museum buff, 25%, and you get that extra 15% marching speed as well, which is great. I think really free-to-play should 100%, upgrade Aethelflaed here if you're using it. So those are some of the commanders that I can suggest for you guys here in Rise of Kingdoms, but there are also other pairings that you can still do if you have other commanders. So sometimes you kind of have to work on whatever you have in the game. So if you're free to play and you've been playing for a long time, you probably have Mehmed maxed out through the gold chest by this time. So you can also do like a Mehmed and Aethelflaed leadership type of setup in here. So this is something that is kind of, more of a really free-to-play approach into the game. If you have YSG, you can also do an Aethelflaed, you can also do a YSG Aethelflaed, more AoE, but this is going to be really weak. It is going to be, people use this term called glass cannon. You can do a Tao and Aethelflaed, which, Tao has a march speed reduction. So I'm giving you guys some of the old commanders in here that you can use in the battlefield here with Aethelflaed. Now, remember, Tao YSG also has an upgraded museum buff, so it is giving it a little bit more firepower in the battlefield in here. So let me know in the comment below what type of commanders you think can also be paired with Aethelflaed that you have been doing that we haven't really discussed here today. Now, I guess the biggest question within the game now is, can Aethelflaed really survive in the Season of Conquest KVK? I think in the early Season of Conquest, I think you can definitely survive with Aethelflaed. And I think even if it's your last march, you can still use Aethelflaed here. But you got to pair it up with some of the newer gen commanders in the game. Just like when we talk about Zargon the Great. I mean, if you don't have Zargon, I don't know whoever you have in the game. So like, for example, for me, I have my newest commander. For example, I don't have all my other legendaries in here. And I can use Boudica. I can definitely use Boudica and then Aethelflaed as a secondary in here. So I will still have a huge damage because of Aethelflaed, what she's able to bring into the combat. Then you can definitely still succeed in the Season of Conquest. So if you are maybe a cavalry guy, and you can definitely try to use, like, for example, maybe a Xiang Yu. Although your defense reduction, the highest one will take place, but you can do more of a, it's not really stack, what's the right word for this one? Consecutive debuff. You get marching speed, you're able to catch up to the enemies. So, I think using Aethelflaed has its viability in the Season of Conquest, but it's, of course, not the #1 best march that you can use, just to being honest. But for free-to-play, this is something that is really good because it is a free legendary commander that you're able to obtain in the expedition in the game. Now, another commander that you can use is Alexander Nevsky. So, for example, I have Alexander Nevsky. I think with Aethelflaed, you can also use this if you have a Nevsky. And let's say you're still working on that Joan of Arc and you don't have anything to pair it up with. So, Nevsky with a high skill damage factor here, 2300, and troop defense decrease in here per stack as well. So you're going to reduce the defense of your opponents. You get some cav marching speed, allow you to march as fast as just like Xiang Yu would be able to. So, and I mean, definitely Nevsky is another great option. I don't know if anybody actually do Alexander Nevsky with Aethelflaed. I think that's actually a cool setup there to do. What about some of the museum buff that we've talked about? Like, some of them have been upgraded in here. So perhaps you can try to still do like a Tao Aethelflaed. I think that's a great one, that you can do within the game, because you're probably have Tao maxed out by the end stages of Rise of Kingdoms for those who are free to play, who have been playing this game for a long time. To me, when I see Aethelflaed, I look at Aethelflaed to be more of a led by cavalry because of its ability to slow down other marches and deal a lot of damage. So if you are able to slow down other marches, you're able to catch up to them, you deal a lot of damage, you can kill them off. That is really the benefit of Aethelflaed, in my opinion. Or you can run and lead with other cavalry commanders within your group, and you can be the main debuffer, reducing the marching speed, and as well as debuffing, right, the attack, defense, and health reduction. Now, of course, the exception for that is the Zargon the Great. You can lead it with infantry, but for the most part, like I said, I think cavalry is really great for it as well. But if you don't have Zargon the Great, then you go for Cavs. But if you have Zargon, you can try definitely doing the Aethelflaed combination. So I really think Aethelflaed has a place in Season of Conquest, for the free-to-play players, because of its ability to, debuff AoE at a very nice capacity, because it is a forward-facing fan-shaped area. And like I said, if you do like a Zargon, then you can stack up more of the awe on all the targets that you do. So yeah, Aethelflaed definitely has a value in the open field in the Season of Conquest. Anyway, RoKers, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys like this video. I'll see you guys again next time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.